Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another Knowledge Bomb episode of Lead to Greatness, where we believe in helping others reach their greatest potential, and together we can change the world. Today on Lead to Greatness, we have two amazing gentlemen, Daniel Stafford and Robby Switzer, founders of Shopanova, a modern growth media buying agency for e-commerce shopping. This phenomenal team has been able to grow their clients' revenue from 5 figures all the way to 7 figures and beyond. On today's podcast, Daniel and Robby explain some of the mistakes they made their first year of business. Listen, if you are a business startup, I promise you, you do not want to miss this amazing episode. Please help me welcome Daniel and Robby with Unstick Your Business.
This is Cedric Francis, and you're listening to Lead to Greatness.
I'm Robby Switzer. We're based up here in Homer, Alaska, and we run a digital marketing agency for e-commerce brands. And kind of a fun fact and a fun part of our journey is that we actually grew up in a small town here. It's called Homer, Alaska. It's less than 5,000 people. Yep. We grew up commercial fishing and doing construction. And so it was kind of a crazy journey for us to shift into what we do now. But fun fact is we're brother-in-laws. I married Daniel's little sister.
Before this all started, before the business started, that's how what kind of connected us is being family, him marrying my sister.
That's awesome. So Daniel, how did you feel about Robby dating your sister?
You know, I was the one really pushing for it, actually. I'm the one that connected them because I was actually friends with his older brother. And then Robby came up to visit. We started hanging out and I was like, this is a good dude. And my sister at that point had told me she kind of liked him. So then we were always planning little hangouts and meetups, it seemed like.
He didn't have to pressure me too hard, though. I was pretty in love. But one time, everyone was like wanting us to date because on paper, they're like, oh, they're a good fit. And I remember one time we were driving around in this van and they're like, you guys need to figure out what you're doing. And they kicked us out of the van and they're like, you guys need to have a DTR, define the relationship. And they're like, we're not going to pick you up until you figure it out. And that's pretty much when we started.
And they figured it out.
Now we're married and doing well. So
that is awesome. That's an awesome family moment. So here it is. So how in the world did you transition from commercial fishing to what you're doing now?
Yeah, definitely. So I was actually born and raised here. I grew up commercial fishing with my dad, who actually grew up fishing with his dad. So it's kind of a generational thing. Mm-hmm. My dad absolutely loved it. He actually holds all these like a world record set for most amount of fish caught in one set and just grew up doing it, really thrived in it. And I started going out in the boat with him actually when I was 3 years old. And by the time I was 10, I was a full deckhand, meaning I was like a full-time employee on his boat. For those of you that don't know what commercial fishing looks like that's a pretty hard job for a 10-year-old. You know, you're getting up at like 5, 6 in the morning, fishing all the way till like 10, 11 at night, and then repeating it the next day. And you're gone for about a 3-month stretch at a time, which was cool as a kid, right? You learned a lot of like hard work, a lot of great things. You're out in nature around whales and all this cool wildlife. And I did that all the way up until I was basically 23, 24. And I got married and we got pregnant on our honeymoon and had a kid on the way. So all of a sudden I felt all this pressure being newly married. I'm a new father, soon to be. And I was like, man, I got to go out and do the Alaska thing, buy my own operation, you know, start my own business and provide the life our family wants and kind of start doing my own thing. So I did that, bought a boat, went into $300,000 of debt, went out fishing, was having a really good summer. And that sounds crazy, right? Just buying a $300,000 operation as a 23-year-old. But up in Alaska, that's like normal. That's what people kind of do in this community. So I grew up in it and I was pretty confident that I was going to do well. But looking back, there's so many variables, right? Like, are the fish even going to show up? Are you going to get paid for them? So there's all those kind of scary things going into it. But anyways, was having a good start to the season. And we're actually heading back to port with about 10,000 pounds of fish on board, meaning like the fish holds were just partially full. And I was going to pick up my wife. And as we were cruising in, the waves slowly started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And all of a sudden a big one hit us and we surfed down the front of it and it turned us hard over at the bottom and we rolled the boat over with 4 of us actually inside the boat. Wow. We had this moment where we locked eyes with each other of like, every man for himself just to get out.
It's not a little boat.
It's not a little boat
Yeah.
too. A lot of people think, oh, he flipped a little boat, but it was like a 45-foot, $300,000 boat, pretty big operation. And a lot of people die doing that. So it's pretty sketchy situation. And we luckily all made it out. I climbed out the window. Everyone else popped up, thank God. But I lost everything, pulled equity out of our home. We borrowed lots of money, and the boat was underinsured, but that was my introduction to manhood. It felt like after being married, having a kid on the way, then I just lost my whole first business and ended up about $60,000 in debt after that year. And I'll let Robbie kind of jam on his.
Yeah. So about this same time, or same community, for the most part, very similar upbringing. I didn't grow up fishing like he did, but as soon as I got married to his sister, that was kind of the path we were going to follow. And my wife, Brittany, she actually grew up on the boat with Daniel as well. I don't think she started quite as early, but all through high school, she was a fisherman and would go out and make a ton of money. And it was kind of a really cool work hard, play hard lifestyle where you go out and you make a ton of money and then you can go and have some freedom for the rest of the year. And it worked really well for a long time. There's a lot of freedom in that. But as soon as we both got married and started having kids, it just totally shifted the tone of that circumstance. So when I got married, it was actually on our honeymoon. Daniel's dad, Brittany's dad, said, hey, I got a good deal on a boat. Like, you guys should buy in. And so we actually also went into debt, bought our own fishing operation and fished it for a few years. But around the same time when he rolled his boat, I also had my first child on the way. And dude, it was a rainy, cold night, and there was, big seas coming in and we're getting pounded around. And I just looked out in the distance and there was like another fisherman and an old man who was out there just drinking his night away and just surviving the moment. And I was like, I really don't want that to be me. And so we were both kind of hit this moment where you know what? I don't think this is going to work for us forever. It's not going to work long-term or short-term because it's really hard to be away from my wife and baby right now. It was just kind of turned into this thing where it wasn't so much fun anymore. And it was just I don't know how I'm going to survive this. So around that same time, we started just trying to brainstorm anything else. I think at the time, Daniel had read the book, Think and Grow Rich. And it just really kind of widened his perspective. And we're pretty good friends at this point too. And he was just kind of sharing some of the things he learned from that. And I think he had this aha moment. I'll let you kind of speak to that.
Yeah, because I grew up fishing, right? So that's what I thought I had to do to provide for my family. I'm like, well, 23, this is all I know. I don't feel like going and learning a whole new industry. I don't even know where to start. Or I didn't even believe that I could generate wealth outside of fishing. But when I read that book, something did shift in me where it expanded my mindset and what I thought was possible. Where I'm like, no, actually, I can go create this life over here, pursue my dreams, create wealth outside of this little world that I know. But it took me just shifting my belief system to believe in something greater that was going to serve me and my family better. And from that moment, I think it set us both on this trajectory of really going after what was on our hearts and pursuing our dreams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we kind of took that belief system into trying something new, which when we were out on the boats, we always had a video camera with us. That was just something we'd like to do. There's tons of videos Daniel being attacked by a sea lion or standing on icebergs, all these fun things that we'd experience out in the fishing world. But then we're like, hey, could we use this skill to start a business? So we started a video production company. And for the first year, just we were selling videos and we were working with some local businesses and doing some really cool videos. But then, the whole idea was that it was going to contribute to their marketing and grow their business. But they would take the video and they'd be like, this is awesome. I posted on my Instagram and on my website. And we're like, okay, well, how did it go? They're like, well, I have 68 views. Hasn't really changed my business, but some people saw it and said it was cool. And we're like, oh, that's not really good.
It's not what we're going for here.
So it kind of led us down this journey of well, when you have a good marketing asset, what do you do with it? And that kind of opened the door to developing and learning about paid ad strategies, just marketing strategies in general. And, really trying to answer the question of what value are we bringing to our clients led us down the path of starting what's now the marketing company. We work specifically with e-commerce brands, but it started with that video production stuff. And it's just kind of been a really cool experience ever since then, where we feel like this whole process of us putting our lives in order and exiting, what we felt like was a toxic lifestyle and creating something new somewhere else, we felt like we were having all these personal breakthroughs. And then with every personal breakthrough, it felt like we experienced, a correlating breakthrough in business. And we got mentors, and we were starting to get like our first few clients, and started developing our case studies and just building momentum. And now, 5-6 years later, we have 40 full-time employees. We've generated our clients over $100 million in revenue, just directly attributed to the campaigns we run. And dude, it's just a really fun journey, and we've had to like learn a lot of lessons and reinvent ourselves along the way, and just pretty crazy to go from like two totally different worlds. And now we feel like we're in a place where we're not only thriving professionally in our company, but we feel like this whole journey has been so worthwhile because it's set us up to thrive personally as well, with at home with our families, and to be available and to be able to have, dinner with the family and hang out with the kids and stuff like that is pretty meaningful, and kind of makes it all worth it.
Wow. And that's amazing, because you guys said you started off with brainstorming. How long did that process take?
I feel like it was pretty quick, because I was actually like, after I rolled my boat, I went out fishing with my dad again. And a lot of times you have a lot of downtime. And so a lot of time on the boat, I was just thinking after reading the book, and I feel like it was probably maybe a 6-month period or so. And we're like, all right, let's dive into this. And then we kind of struggled our first year and had to supplement our income with fishing still. So we'd leave for a few months, come back, try to build up the business, and we were alternating time doing that. So the first year we like lost money in the business, basically, right? Like most startups do.
Complete failure.
Let's be real. It was a complete failure, but it gave us, we felt alive doing it. It was really fun. And we knew it was building into something long-term and greater. So there felt like there was a lot of purpose behind it,
Is there any time during the process where you guys say, you know what, this is not working, let's go back to fishing?
That's a good question. There was lots of times, especially with my wife at home, like, because my dad at the same time was actually like fully going to hand over an operation to me and let me start buying into that super nice boat and everything. But I had to make a decision right then and there, me and my wife was even like, she hated the fishing lifestyle, but it was such a great opportunity. She's like, maybe we should do that. It's like right in front of us. Let's just go for it. And I was like, no, I just can't do that another day. That's not where I want to be long-term. And so I remember the day I made the decision, like cutting ties with fishing and fully diving into the business. And ever since I did that, I feel like the business, went on an upward trajectory of when we cut ties with fishing altogether.
Dude, I remember when you were considering that offer, I just remember being so proud of you and like so inspired by the way you handled that thought process. Because I remember you had told me, you said, I'm not going to do the boat. Like I'm all in here. And the reason why is because best case scenario, like I go out there and I make a ton of money and, we do really well. I eventually own the boat. But even in a best case scenario, like 5 years from now, that will not get me closer to where I want to be. I was like, holy crap. Because it was such a sick opportunity. I was like, you should probably take it. Like,
yeah, all my friends thought I was a little crazy too, especially the ones like in the fishing industry.
But then when I heard his perspective, I was like, you know what I mean? If that's not what's going to be fulfilling for him long term, like it probably isn't the best move. And that kind of gave me the inspiration then to be like pretty all in myself as well.
Yeah, that's cool.
This is a pretty awesome story. And what I love about it, because Daniel, that you say you read the book Think and Grow Rich. So
yeah,
you read the book and it shifted your belief system. There were moments when you guys thought about quitting and going back to what you were, were used to doing or comfortable doing. And, but you guys fought through that and you guys made a decision. Robbie, you believing in what Daniel's saying so much, you're like, man, you know what? I want to do it too. So I want to speak to that aspect, because Daniel read the book, you guys are hanging out, you're listening to him, and he had this great opportunity, yet and still he was like, man, you know what, man, it doesn't feel right. This is not what I want to do. This is not where I want to be. And you're making the decision, and he inspired you so much. You're like, man, you know what? I'm all in. Let's do this.
Yeah, I think what was tricky about it is it's really hard to make a big shift like that when you feel so responsible to my wife and my daughter.
Mm.
And, you know, Daniel rolled his boat, so he didn't have much to lose at that point. But we were
lost it all, bro.
We were doing pretty good, you know, with our fishing boat. That was one thing, you know, that was kind of the blessing and the curse is we were actually pretty skilled at what we were doing. And by like the measure of our community, you know, we were, you know, somewhat respected and people thought, you know, we have a bright future in fishing and stuff like that, kind of, you know, in our own separate operations. Yeah, that was always a temptation. But I think deep down, we just knew that there was something more we wanted. And for me, what the driving force behind that was just wanting to have my time be more available to my wife and kids. And it's just really hard to be able to make that happen when you're gone for months at a time. And totally, there's definitely been a lot of times where borrow each other's strengths. We get inspired by each other, and where one person's feeling down, you know, the other person can kind of be strong. And I feel like that brotherhood, that community has really helped us get to where we are today. But yeah, man, it's been a crazy process for sure. And especially when the temptation is always there to back out and do something that, you know, on paper makes a lot of sense, but deep down didn't feel right to us.
I want to shift a little bit. And I want to start with you, Daniel, and Robbie. I want you guys to just play a little ping pong and bounce off of this question. What are some mistakes you made in the startup phase? And what are some practical steps you did to correct it?
Man, we made a lot of mistakes. So one of the bigger ones was our first year in business. Before we even knew how to make sales or generate revenue, we hired a full-time employee. So the first year in business, we did $100,000 with our video production company. And that was, you know, we had to buy new equipment. We leased a building. We had all these expenses, but then we paid someone a $50K salary, and he was pretty much the only person getting paid. I would say in the startup phase, you got to be a little more scrappy and learn some of these skills yourself. Mm-hmm. And we had no idea to even like what the first step was. We're just like, oh, we're going to make good videos and people are going to come flooding to our doors, right? And it's going to be easy. We had no idea about marketing or sales. So I'd say the first thing you got to do is make sales, right? That's what drives the business. Cash is like the oxygen of your business when it's first starting out. So get scrappy, stay lean when you're young, learn all these different skills because they're actually going to serve you later on as you're handing those off to other people and teaching them how to do that and operate where you were. It's good to like kind of learn the whole aspect of it as you're building out and growing. So that's one practical thing I'd say.
Yeah. One mistake too, that I feel like we made, that cost us just a lot of time and a lot of money was, you know, when you're starting a new business, there's going to be 100 different things that need your attention. And when you're trying to prioritize what's the most important, they're all going to be like super important. Like that's just what it comes down to. And, you know, we spent a lot of time on some of our back end stuff, you know, trying to develop what we were doing with videos. I think when we finally realized we needed to focus on if we could pick one bottleneck in front of us to conquer or to get past and focus all of our energy there, when we kind of gotten this idea of like, let's look at one thing that needs to be fixed now, and then let's figure out the rest of it later. I feel like that was really helpful for us. And like Daniel said, you know, at the moment it doesn't matter if we have like our videos set up exactly dialed in how we want it if nobody's here buying videos. Yeah. So we went all into marketing or sales. And I feel like just, you know, at least in the early stages of starting a business, being able to identify one bottleneck and tackle that just one at a time was really, really helpful. For a lot of people, it needs to be creating oxygen for yourself, which is sales.
One thing too, I was thinking about is I wish we would have got a mentor earlier on because we went a whole year without any mentors, just kind of trying to pick up on free YouTube trainings, which there is a lot of free content on the internet, but that'll only get you so far. As soon as we hired a mentor, that's what they're like, all right, guys, first you need leads. To get leads, you need to market. Then you need sales. Once you got sales, then we can get results for your clients together and start getting case studies. And it's kind of creates this flywheel of momentum, but we had no idea about any of that. But as soon as someone came in and told us, I remember very quickly, we scaled up to like $50,000 a month, which at that point was like our wildest dreams, like farther than we ever thought we would go. you know, so it was crazy, but I wish, like, looking back, it's like, it would have been cool to skip that hard year and just have a mentor, but there's so many lessons in it at the same time. I enjoy that part of the journey still.
Yeah. And then one thing that I've always appreciated about our story that I've tried to encourage people with, but I give this advice with a grain of salt, because, you know, if I were to start something new today, I would go about it entirely different than the first time we started. But I think there was an element of, it was very important for us to just to take the first step. You know, we didn't have vision for where we were going to be today, you know, 5-6 years later, but just to take the first step and have faith that, you know, another door is going to open. If you're willing to do that, that's where you get clarity and opportunity. You know, I don't want people going down and just like willy-nilly starting all these businesses thinking like it'll all work out without a plan in place, because there's total value to having a plan and having vision. For us, it was really helpful just to take the first step.
Yeah, well, I think there is a lot of people standing at the crossroads where they know they want to do something. They're just too scared to even start trying and start failing. So you bring up a really good point. We have a buddy that's really extreme about this, and he says, you know, jump off the ship and burn the ship and swim to the beach, because then you can never go back to the ship. You're on the beach now and you have to make it work. And it's like a whole new level of faith. Like, I feel like that moment where we said, all right, we're done fishing, we're not going back to it. We were like, we have to make this work now. And we did. And there was moments where the first year business was still punching our teeth in. It felt like
Totally.
And we're like, it sounds really easy just to go back to fishing right now. But we didn't do it, and it did pay off.
Man, that is a load of knowledge bombs you just loaded. I really love this. I love how you guys both, it's like I'm sitting here and watching a tennis match. You guys, you know, just great value that I believe is going to really help individuals, you know, getting started, or maybe someone that want to quit right now in the midst of their business. Robbie, you said something, and I want you guys to play ping pong with this question, because you said, Robbie, you said, if I was to do it again, I would do it different. So my question to you is, how would you do it if you could do it all over again?
I wouldn't go into it alone. I would definitely do a little bit more research on the front end, but then find somebody who's been there and done that and really kind of leverage their experience. That's one thing we say is learning by experience is the slowest way to learn. And there's so many people that are willing, you know, to share their knowledge, to share their experience, and allow you to learn from their mistakes rather than you having to painstakingly go through it yourself. Even the podcasts like this, just, you know, getting you and your knowledge, I think is super valuable for people as they're starting to dive into it. In that, there's also the temptation of analysis paralysis. And so there's also an element of just taking action, being bold and diving into it. But to answer your question a little bit more differently, if I were to start something entirely new, just naturally, there'd be a lot of things I do differently because of all the things we've learned and all the experience we have. If I had to pick like one thing, I probably would have a little bit more of a plan. And then also I would just be telling myself, really reinforcing this idea of patience, because that was really, really painful when you're really depending on things to work out, you know, this week, this month. There was a lot of times in that first year where we didn't pay ourselves at all. Really, we didn't pay ourselves much at all at that entire first year. And that was just really a hard thing to put my family through, and to have to go to my wife and she would say, you know, are we getting paid this month? And we'd kind of look at our expenses, see what needs to be paid and what's left to go around. And then we'd say, no, like, we're not getting paid, but I promise it'll be worth it. That was a really hard thing to put myself through. And so if there's any way to avoid that, I would. And just really reinforcing that.
It's a hard question for me, because the first few years taught us so many lessons. I think people need to go out and fail and learn from those failures, and actually view failure as a mentor and as a teacher, not as something that can destroy you. Because looking back, doing things differently, I think I would have just told myself not to worry so much about the process and be stressed out, but just to have the vision and then trust in the process and the right steps to get there. Because it would have been so much better just to be at ease and at peace that whole time in the startup phase, just realizing you are building something. It's hard, right? Because things happen and fear presents all this evidence that things are going to be going wrong. It's hard not to spiral out.
Totally.
But I think I would go back and just and cut worry out of the whole process and just stay focused on the vision.
This is awesome. This is awesome. I'm listening to you guys, and it's 3 P's I just got out of what you guys said. I got planning from you, Robbie. I got purpose and process from Daniel.
I think the purpose for us was always there, in the way that we wanted to put our lives in order, and we wanted to experience more freedom and fulfillment and happiness from our work. And that was actually ended up being kind of like our war cry as a company now, where we actually, as a company, that's what we do, is we empower and liberate people. And so I feel like having a purpose and a why behind what we're doing, it gives us motivation to get out of bed when things now are, hard or easy. It gives us a reason to be here. It helps us attract A+ players. Yeah, we show up every day to help people live happier, more free lives. And it actually started with us. And I think a lot of people have this upside down. I think they view their prospects as number one, and they're giving everything they can to them. From there, turn a few of those into the clients and do sales. And then by the time they're actually like a client, that they're actually getting the least of the value from that company. And we've completely flip-flopped that, where we're like, first we need to put our own lives in order. We need to fix this. From there, we need to empower leaders in our team and empower people, and they need to be living, thriving both professionally and personally. If they're overflowing, that's what's going to give our clients the best result. And then if our clients are getting good results, that's only going to add to our influence and being able to attract more people. We've always kind of had that reversed from what we've learned, in this industry. Being able to empower and liberate and have purpose behind what we're doing definitely is fuel for us now.
What's the lifetime value of the customer, and how do you increase it?
That's a Robbie question. He's good at the technical side. I'll hop into if I need to.
Yeah, so this is really relevant to the e-commerce stores that we work with. And there's a big misconception with the marketing lanes that are available to people, whether you're running Facebook ads or you're running Pinterest ads. Everybody's trying to run these ads and obviously make money when they're running those ads. And they say, I want a 5x return on ad spend. And they're trying to make all their money on the front end. I think what's really healthy for a business to look at, whether you're an e-commerce business or any business in general, is the overall lifetime value of the customer. Because when you understand the lifetime value of the customer, it gives you so much more of a tolerance to be able to acquire that customer. So one thing that we see is, maybe a client would go and they'd spend X amount of money to purchase a customer, get that first time purchase, and they're looking at their cost of goods sold, they're looking at their marketing costs, and they're saying, man, I'm really not making any money here. I can't justify spending more. And they kind of get stagnant as a business because they're not willing to invest in their marketing because they don't think they're making money. What they fail to realize a lot of times is that when you acquire a customer for the first time, that's actually the hardest thing to do. And then getting them to purchase a few more times that year is actually really easy. And so you need to take a holistic view of that customer acquisition process, because you're not only making money the first time they purchase, but maybe 3 or 4 more times that year when they purchase again. And you're not actually paying for that customer the 3rd, 4th, and 5th time. And so we always coach our clients on really understanding the lifetime value of the customer. And then there's a number of ways to increase the lifetime value of a customer, but it's just running like loyalty campaigns, maybe sending an email to everybody on your email list who has purchased one time, giving them a discount for a new product launch, or a sneak peek at a product that they get availability to before the general public. There's a lot of different things, but
yeah, I wanted to say too, like, don't quote me on this specific stat, but I heard somewhere that Starbucks LTV for Starbucks is like $30,000 to $40,000. Like if they look at their average customer base. So that means like if I go to Starbucks starting at 18, by the time I'm 40, I'm probably going to spend, around 40 grand there. Jeez. So that would be the lifetime value of me as a customer. So Starbucks can say like, okay, well, I'm totally fine spending thousands of dollars to acquire one new customer because I know they're going to spend 40 grand with me over the lifetime. So businesses, especially small ones, have a hard time thinking about that because they're all focused on the front end acquisition. But we really do coach people and like, let's also look at the back end, because the LTV is what's really going to sustain and keep growing this. And like for service-based businesses like us, for us, it looks like retaining our clients longer, doing really good work for them. So they want to stay with us. Also offering new services like email marketing or maybe Pinterest ads or TikTok over here. So adding new service is a good way. Product launches for e-commerce.
And we came full circle, now offering video production. So
yeah, now we're offering video production again.
Yeah, so full circle back to where we started.
Wow, that is amazing. But I definitely spend a lot of time in Starbucks. So what is the value of customer acquisition? First of all, for those that don't know, explain what customer acquisition is.
Yeah, so customer acquisition is just acquiring new clients or customers into your business. So you launch an online store, you have zero sales yet. You got to start acquiring customers. You got to get people to start purchasing for the first time to your store to even grow the business or sustain anything, right? Before you can even focus on LTV. So this is where a lot of startups are focusing. And it's just how much money are you spending to acquire? We go by CPA, cost per acquisition. So how many marketing dollars are you spending to acquire a customer? And then once you have that customer, how long are you keeping them around for to figure out the LTV? And that's kind of a simple explanation.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into the marketing.
It's simple, but I think there's, people, they oftentimes they think, acquiring customers and generating sales is the same thing. And they're really not, because you need to understand that one is a fruit and one is a seed. If you're acquiring customers, that's a seed that's going to be planted. It's going to continue to produce more and more.
Yeah.
Whereas if you view it as just like a sale, it's like, it's there, you spend the money, you use it, and it's gone forever. And that's just not true. Acquiring customers is really about, building an entire garden for your business.
Yeah. Building that relationship and then offering a good product or a good service that keeps people around. That's the key. We see oftentimes a lot of people just drop shipping cheap stuff from China, and then their customers are disappointed when they get the product. Now, some people do it well and there's good products involved, but a lot of times they don't care about the customers. They're just trying to get sales for their store and kind of a get rich quick scheme. And they don't care about the customer relationship. So they could spend all the money, or they could have the lowest cost per acquisition in the world, but at the end of the day, they're going to lose them and it's not sustainable.
I want you guys to speak to this, because I believe there's a lot of companies make this mistake. So with the customer business relationship, it's mostly a win-lose instead of being a win-win. Can you guys speak to that to the audience? And, why is a win-lose not good? And why should we go for a win-win?
I heard a funny story about this. And there was this example of these two guys. They were standing on stage and they said, if I'm going to sell this glass of water for $5, and the other guy's has $5 in his hand, he's saying, how much is this worth? And everybody says it's worth $5. That's what he's going to pay for it. But the truth is, when they make that exchange, this is actually worth more than $5, because if it was just worth $5, why would he give it up for that? So he's saying, I'm going to give you $5 because I think that's worth more than my money. If it was the same, then I would just keep my money. And vice versa. The other guy thinks your money is worth more than this product. And so when they're making that exchange on paper, they're both worth $5. But when they make the exchange, they've both gotten more. And so it's this idea that when we transact with each other, we're actually creating value out of thin air that was never there. And I think that's what, as a business owner, you definitely need to understand, that you're there to provide value, and it's a two-way street. Like you said, it's a win-win situation, and you always need to keep that at the front of your strategy.
Bro, how did you just have that story on cue, bro?
That is awesome.
I'm not going to add to that one. That was good.
Let me ask you this question. Between the two of you, what value do you bring to the business?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it really comes down to the person, because a lot of people build their business themselves and it's totally fine. They do really well at it. I think for us, we just have such a tight relationship and we're pushing for something together. And we're like, I think we can build something together faster and make it go farther with the two of us than we could each build individual things alone. A lot of people too advise against going into business with friends or family. And that can be for a good reason, right? There's a lot of business partnerships that don't work out, but we kind of went against the traditional advice and we're like, you know what? we're going to really prioritize our relationship over the business, excuse me. So that way, like we value connection and our friendship over the business. So that's one thing. But for finding a partner, you just got to make sure that you have clear communication.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get offended by feedback is another one. And we've almost, like, it sounds funny, but it's almost like a marriage when you're in a partnership, right? Running a business, because you do have to communicate a lot. There's a lot of big decisions that you have to make. There's a lot of stress in it. And so we actually sit down with a mentor on a weekly basis that'll sit us down and pull stuff out of us. If there's something that's bothering, he'll facilitate that conversation just to make sure we're staying on the same page and not holding anything back from each other.
Yeah. And I would say if I had to boil it down to one value that we kind of share that's been really helpful, it's just this idea that we're humans and life is messy and we're going to screw up. It is within our power to reconcile. And, there's always going to be something where I screw up and do something bad and Daniel's pissed off at me for it. And vice versa, or I've dropped the ball, or I'm not showing up, or I'm, what's probably a little bit more accurate, I'm hyperactive and I'm saying yes to too many things. And now we're like all stressed out because of it. And we just have this idea that it's like, you know what? We've never done this before. Life is messy. We're humans. Like, we give each other grace and space for that.
Yeah.
And we know that we'll be able to clean up any mess that we do make.
Another big thing I think too is humility. Like, Robbie and I aren't trying to ever take credit for the success of the business. We're always pointing it back to each other, back to the team. So that I think goes a long ways, because if one of us was always trying to take credit for everything and like fighting to be the face of the brand or get recognition, like that wouldn't last very long.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are awesome, man. What are some practical business growth tips, tools, advice that you can share with the Lead to Greatness community to help us reach our greatest potential?
I mean, for us, the most effective thing that we see for business growth is obviously really good marketing, and we're a marketing agency, right? So go figure, that's what I would say. But that's what really shifted our business. Once we got the word out and people could actually start seeing it. Patrick, our sales guy, has this funny saying, like, we don't want to be the best kept secret in town, right? We want people to know about what we're doing. And same with our e-com store owners that have an excellent product. People need to know. And the most effective way that we are seeing marketing work is through paid strategies like Facebook, Instagram, and we're starting to dabble in other areas. But that's what I would say. If you're not advertising on those platforms right now, and they might sound like common sense, but you really need to get on there and start building out that strategy. And if you don't have the funds to build out that strategy yet, then really focus hard on getting good content and building up your organic, because you can get sales from that. And when you add paid to that, it's like, it's dumping fuel on the fire. And that's where we see the most explosive growth, is from the people that have good content and a good organic strategy.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be learned in our story too, that we actually have kind of applied to our client strategies, across the whole range of them, is that we feel like when we were trying to hide the fact that we were from Alaska and we were embarrassed about our story, and we felt like, dude, nobody's going to hire a marketing company from this small town in Alaska, these commercial fishermen who don't know what they're doing. It just made us feel fraudulent. It probably came through in our clients, and we weren't closing business because of it. But as soon as we owned that, and we came and we just gave a authentic representation of who we are, and we showed up with that in our marketing, it felt like it really just resonated with people so much more. And I think at the end of the day, people buy from people, and they want an authentic experience, but they also want somebody who's, very skilled at what they're doing, or they have a really good product. And there's all these people who have invested all their time and money into having the number one skills or the number one product, but then they're trying to give their best impression of like a faceless corporation. It's like, no, we want to know your story. We want to know you. We want to know the authentic person behind this brand. And when we've encouraged our clients to do that, they've all seen good results. So I think that's a big part of having that marketing piece be effective.
Wow. If someone wanted to connect with you and what you're doing, where should they go?
Yeah, if they just go to shopanova.com, they can check us out. They can read more about us. We got case studies on there. We have some free resources for teaching people how to maximize the conversions on their website. And they can check out the e-commerce growth show too, and just get some free information and knowledge on that.
And on behalf of the Lead to Greatness community, I want to thank you both so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and adding value to us.
Thanks so much for having us on, man. I really had a good time today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
And don't forget to subscribe to Lead to Greatness if this is your first time. And this podcast was helpful to you, leave a big thumbs up. And also, I want you to check out our Marriage Coach podcast, the podcast with my wife and I. If you're on iTunes, please rate this podcast and leave a review and help get the word out. Again, thank you, Lead to Greatness Nation, for joining us on today. Looking forward to seeing you again on next week. Till then, remember, if you help others reach their greatest potential, together we can change the world. Peace. We out.